Lyra's POV. I am a shifter. In 7 days, it will be my blood color check day. When a shifter becomes an adult, he or she will begin to receive blood samples for matching. Blood, of course, not just for the sake of finding a mate. After all, you can see the color of the blood when you draw it, and for the shifter, the darker the blood, the better. Some parents were so eager to find out their child's fate that they had private doctors go and take their child's blood, and in some cases, the higher-class parents got rid of their babies if their blood color wasn't dark enough. Supposedly, it was a disgrace to have someone in your family who was from a lower class. I don't want a mate, but most girls want to find their mate soon. I just want to know the color of blood, so I have to draw blood. It was so important there was a name for the day, par ordo lux. But I'm an orphan, or was. I'm 18 now, so I'm a legal adult. Luckily for me, I had no one to try and take my blood from a younger age. No one knew my parents. They say I was just dropped off at the front door to some stranger's house, with no name, just a silver chain necklace. Fantastic, huh? Looking out the window, I saw the postman drop something off in my letterbox, getting up. I trudged to the old ornate door. Taking steps by 2, I finally reached the bottom level of the apartments, swinging the door open. Gazing out onto the street, there were some kids playing in their yard in front of my apartment. Jogging to the letterbox, I saw the thin, pale yellow envelope peeping out of its slot. Not bothering to unlock the letterbox, I grabbed the paper by its corner and gave it a harsh tug, making the edges crease a little. Oh well. Managing to get out the letter, I made my way back to my apartment. Sitting on my marble kitchen table, I turned the envelope to see who it was from. The Council of Shifters. I knew exactly why I had received this letter. How had I not noticed before? I mean, who sends a pale yellow envelope that looks like it was dated in the 1700s in 2013, knowing that they would come to my door if I didn't turn up to the location? I reluctantly opened the letter, wincing when I cut my finger on the harsh edges, but it quickly healed. Being a shifter does have its many pros. Sighing dramatically, I unfolded the letter inside. Dear Miss Lyra Kayla Evans, we have written this letter to you to inform that it is time for your par odor lux. You must pack your belongings and have them inside the main room of your house. Please leave the door unlocked, so our men will be able to bring your belongings to your future pack and mate with ease. Don't worry about furniture or food, because your accommodation will serve everything you may need. You must arrive at the House of Wolves, 34 Case RD, California by 12 p.m. sharp on the 22nd of December 2013. You are allowed to arrive 2 days in advance. By the 30th of December, your place in society would have been made, and you will be sent to your pack and mate. Make sure you bring a suitcase for spare clothes and extra necessities. You belongings will be sent to your mate as soon as we find out your blood color. Good luck for the future, and may you live a happy life with your mate. Kind regards, the Shifter Council, 5863-2954. Looking back at the piece of paper, they didn't mention what would happen if you didn't turn up. Would I be disqualified or something? I hoped so. Turning the letter over, there was a small print on the back, leaning over slightly to have a better look. If you don't turn up on the correct date and time, we will assume you don't want to come. So by then our men will have been sent to your address and will forcefully bring you to California. So make sure you turn up on time. Looks like they didn't want anyone to see that part of the letter, otherwise they would have put it with the rest of the letter. Flopping onto my bed, I contemplated running away. They would just hunt you down. A small voice in my head said, "It was right, though. The council had the best of the best trackers in the Shifter Society, and they could find you even if you left 5 years ago." Getting up, I decided I should probably start packing. Everyone in my neighborhood was a shifter. Humans were long gone. Shuffling through my wardrobe, I grumbled to myself about how unfair this was. Why couldn't the man move in with the girl? Not the other way around. I didn't even know where I was going to live. For all I knew, I could end up in the desert, surrounded by cactuses. Wouldn't that be nice? Taking a deep breath, I heaved out my suitcase and chucked random clothes in it, leaving enough room for toiletries and spare money. Picking up the rest of my clothes and dropping them into boxes, I'll sort through them when I get to my new pack. Grabbing random utensils and hunting equipment, I place them carefully into another box filled with polystyrofoam peanuts. I hadn't shifted into my wolf yet when my mate bits my neck or marks me. Then about an hour later, I'll shift. Looking around my empty apartment, I realized I had been so caught up with my thoughts that I had virtually packed everything. Twisting my necklace in my hand, I frowned at the thought of leaving this place. I had nothing to do. Walking towards my red-painted room, I tucked myself under the covers of my bed, hoping to get some sleep. Cracking one of my eyes open, it looked to be around 9 in the morning. What the? I fell asleep at around 4 p.m. yesterday. I usually didn't sleep for more than 10 hours straight. I pursed my lips together in frustration at the extremely empty room. My eyes were still half open from just waking up. But it was bloody annoying knowing that you had to move and literally destroy everything you've worked for in just a second. The aeroplane ticket was sitting on my nightstand, reminding me of what was to come. Sort of like a reminder of your worst nightmare, only that it wasn't my worst. Lyra's POV. Looking out the window, all the golf carts and terminals were getting smaller. The man next to me kept trying to spike up a conversation, but I ended it as soon as it started. Some people just don't stop. So, what are you doing going to California? The irritating guy next to me asked. I gave him a blank look. None of your business, I snapped and turned to face the window. He smirked at me and looked like he thought I was playing hard to get. Yeah, right. He was testing my patience today and I only had very little. You know why? Because it is the 21st of December and right now it's 5 in the afternoon. No more than a week I will be forced to move to some pack. I'm going to the bathroom. I'll see you soon. He winked. Was he for real? He should have just said, I want you to come with me to the bathroom so we can get it on. Although I would have slapped him for that, it's not like I was a virgin or anything. I lost it years ago. I'm pretty sure my future mate won't be too happy about that. Oh well, I'll survive. 2 hours into the flight, and the hostess came around with food for our dinner. The irritating guy came back half an hour ago with a pretty dejected look on his face. It was not like he was ugly or anything. I just wasn't in the mood to do it on an airplane. I don't know anyone who would. Would you like a soda or orange juice? The Barbie hostess came around, asking the irritating guy next to me what he would like, while just shoving a bottle of water in my face. Whore. I could also think of a few more colorful words to describe her as well. Of course. I'll see you in a couple of minutes. The hostess giggled and moved along, her hips swaying a little too unnaturally. The guy next to me smiled cockily in my direction. I had no idea what that was about, but it was like he was expecting me to be jealous. So I just smiled innocently back at him, startling him a little. Stretching my arms above my head, I relaxed into my seat and sighed softly. 3 more hours of hell to go. Blinking my eyes open, I saw the same Barbie hostess above me, shaking my shoulders roughly. Get up, she snarled, and stormed away, taking her trolley with her. Whoa. Someone's in a bad mood. Shaking my head slightly, chuckling, I looked around. There were a few babies crying, and most people looked a bit out of it. Thank you for flying Continental Airlines. We hope you had an enjoyable flight, the pilot said through the intercom. Far from it, I muttered, standing up. Luckily, the guy next to me had already left, leaving me to get my own bag. Stumbling into the airport, my legs felt like jello, and waiting for my suitcase didn't help either. Everyone was pushing and shoving to get to their baggage. It was horrible. To make things worse, it was raining horses and whales outside. Looking around, I hailed a taxi, desperate to get out of the rain. The only protection I had was my thin but warm hoodie. A yellow taxi pulled over, and the man rushed out from the driver's side and roughly grabbed my suitcase, dumping it into the boot of the car. I slid into the back seats of the car, twisting my thick, dark brown hair to get the water out of it. Excuse me, senorita, where must you go? The man asked with a heavy Spanish accent. He had dark, beady eyes and gray and cropped hair. To 34 Caser Gracias, I muttered. I had learnt Spanish when I was in 10th grade. It seems like times like these, it comes in handy. Ah, ¿tú sabes español? He asked. Do you know Spanish? Sí, I nodded my head. After that, the car fell silent as we headed down a main road. The streets were littered in garbage, but it still looked fascinating. I loved exploring new places. ¿Cuánto tiempo hasta que lleguemos allí? I asked the man. How long till we get there? I was starting to get a headache. It had only been 2 hours. Ya mero, he replied. Almost there. I nodded my head to tell him I heard what he said. The scenery hand now changed to a forest. There were about 1,000,000 trees, and it seemed to go on forever. It was green, green, brown. Green, 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 brown. It seemed to go on forever. Estamos aquí, the man quipped. We are here. Then he slowly pulled up into a giant car park, filled with cars and bikes and all that stuff. Behind it, though, was the biggest house I had ever seen. It was as big as a 5-star hotel and as luxurious. Gracias, I thanked, handing him some notes. He got out of the car and took out my suitcase. Buena suerte, he winked. Good luck. I got out of the car and waved to him. He started the taxi and drove away, a content smile on his face. Breathing in deeply, I picked up my suitcase and headed towards the entrance of the mansion. I gripped the letter tightly in my left hand and knocked on the large oak door. State your name and purpose. A deep, gruff voice boomed. I gulped. Lyra Evans, and I'm here for Par Odor Lux, I said in a slightly shaky voice. There was a pause before someone cleared their throat and the door opened. Hello, Miss Evans. Please make your way through the hall, and the lady at the end will give you your details for your stay. He smiled unemotionally, as if he was a trained robot. Smiling faintly, I walked past the buff man and headed down the marble corridor. There were paintings of old people dressed in formal attire, dating back to the 1800s. They all had cocky, uptight expressions on their faces. Walking past some more doors, I came to a stop at a modern, sleek desk with an old lady behind it. She had a kind smile and held her hand out when I smiled back at her. Hello, dear. You must be Lyra. I'm Jacqueline, she said warmly as I shook her hand. Taking out some pieces of paper, she shuffled them neatly and placed them in front of me. Now, you will be staying on the 2nd floor, in room 14-inch, she said, handing me a map of the building. These are also your details for when you depart, and when you will get you blood drawn, she stated formally, picking up the rest of the pile. Thanks, I said warily, picking up the papers. No problem, sweetie. If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask. I hope you have a nice stay here at the House of Wolves, she waved, adjusting her glasses on her nose. I sighed and looked at the map. My room was right above where I was now, so I had to find some stairs. Looking right ahead of me, there were stairs. At least everything is turning out for me today. Skipping the steps by 2, I heaved my suitcase over the last step, causing me to stumble a little bit. Turning around, I studied the numbers on the doors, 8, 10, 12, 14. Jogging over to the door, I noticed the envelope attached to the map. Inside was a key. Ripping it open, I shoved it into the key slot and turned it. It opened with a click, and I picked up my suitcase, dragging it inside. The room had a double bed with a plain red doona and cream walls with gold trimmings. Looking outside, I realized I had a view of the forest, and right in the top left-hand corner, I could just see a waterfall. Sniffing the air, I could make out the faint scent of the maids and the cleaning products they used. Having heightened senses did pay off, I thought smugly. Looking around, there was door to my right, which I guessed led to an N suite. Taking a look, I grinned at the color choice. Everything was black and gold, with a hint of red here and there. Opening my suitcase, I pulled out my clothes and stuffed them into the dresser, not bothering to fold them. A knock at the door startled me. "Excuse me, miss, are you decent?" A small feminine voice whispered. "Ah, yes, I am," I muttered, startled. A small body came through the door. "Here are some soaps and toiletries you may need for your stay, and a few snacks and drinks for tonight, in case you get hungry." She smiled and hurried out the door, closing it behind her. Looking over what she brought, I saw some bottles of shampoo, some cans of water and soda, and a few biscuits and fruit. That's when I realized I hadn't eaten in a while. I had been on the go for 8 hours. Stuffing my face with some chocolate chip cookies, I jumped on my back, relishing the feel of the soft mattress underneath me. Sighing softly, I knew my freedom would only last a little while, but for now, I would enjoy it while it lasts. Lyra's POV. Rolling over, I snuggled into the sheets further. My bed was never as comfy as this. Then I remembered I wasn't in my room. I was at the House of Wolves. Great. Pushing the warm, fluffy sheets off my body, I stretched like a cat and walked into the ensuite. The cool tiles of the room contrasted with the warm, woolly carpet I had previously walked on. Striping out of my clothes, I tuned the shower on full and stepped in, hissing when the boiling hot water ran over my bare skin. Wrapping a towel around me, I shakily stepped into my room. I chose random clothes and put them on, not bothering to look at my appearance. I headed downstairs, looking intently at my map of the building. Oof! I gasped when I bumped into a body, straightening up. I looked down to see a small, fragile-looking girl with a disgust scowl on her face. Well, that just ruins her whole appearance. "Watch where you're going, commoner," she snarled and stomped away, tripping slightly when she lost balance on her 5-inch stilettos. Coughing, I tried to hold my laugh in when she huffed and continued down the corridor. Poor girl thought that because she had a high status that she was better than me. She probably was just an airhead inside. I felt sorry for her mate. He'll have to chain her down or drug her. Still smirking, I made my way down the stairs and into a large room that smelt like some sort of posh buffet. Sniffing the air, I smelt waffles, fruit, hot chocolate, and muffins. The room was set out like a restaurant. There were people chatting on elegantly styled tables and chairs. "Hey, what are you doing sniffing the air? I know for sure that you haven't shifted, otherwise you wouldn't be here." A loud, curious voice broke me out of my daydreaming. "Well, I sort of have very heightened senses," I said stupidly, looking at the girl next to me. She was gorgeous. She had baby blue eyes and straight red hair that went to her mid-back. She was small and petite, but in a natural way. Not like the girl I had bumped into before. She looked like she starved herself. "Whoa, that's so cool. What's it like? I've only got the average senses of a human." "It sucks," she moaned, glaring at the ground slightly. "I guess it's like you've already shifted, without the shifted apart, if that makes sense," I explained, squinting my eyes to think of a better way of explaining it. "It's an old habit." "Wish I had that," she muttered. "That would have saved me from going through all my brother's stuff to find out if he stole my diary or not. Would have caught him in a minute," she huffed, crossing her arms over her chest, stomping her foot childishly. "It's not all what it cracks out to be," I mused. "There are times when you really wished you didn't have them, especially the smelling part," I said, disgusted, remembering things I really wished I didn't. "Oh, ouch, that must have been harsh," she shuddered, widening her eyes comically. "Come on, let's go and get something to eat," she chirped happily. God, she was bipolar. "Sure," I said, following her. "How long have you been here?" I asked, interested. "Since the 20th, my parents forced me to come early. They're all about me finding my mate. I just think they want to get rid of me," she said lightly, as if she had said this way too many times. "Who are your parents?" I asked, catching up to her. "The betas of the Blue Diamond Pack," she grumbled. I chalked. Most people knew who the Blue Diamond Pack were. They were one of the biggest packs, under the Full Moon Pack, the biggest and most powerful pack in the world. "Wow," I swallowed. "Must be hard, huh?" I smiled sadly. I could tell from her facial expression that she didn't like the spotlight. "You know," she started, "you're that first person I know who hasn't gushed and tried to befriend me to get closer to a more powerful position. I like you," she decided, beaming at me. I grinned back at her, taking one of the clean plates and pilling on waffles and muffins. She stared at my plate, a weird expression on her face. "How do you eat so much and not get fat?" she asked, looking at my plate in wonder. I laughed, my shoulders shacking from amusement. "I just have very high metabolism," I stated with a chuckle, dragging her over to a free table. "I just don't get it," she said in a small voice, jealousy in her eyes. "I have to watch my diet closely, or I'll put on more pounds than I can take off," she grumbled, picking up a strawberry and popping it in her mouth. "It's not fair," she muttered, stabbing her fork into a pear. I laughed, clearly enjoying her suffering. She pouted at me. A small whine came out of her mouth. "Stop using my sadness to your advantage," she whined, poking me with her fork. Okay. I laughed, holding my hand up in surrender. "No need to kill me now." Laughing, we spent the rest of breakfast eating and chatting as if we were long-lost friends, joking about the most random subjects. until there was an announcement that all females were to report to the auditorium. "What do you think it's about?" Avery asked worriedly. That was her name. She looked like she desperately wanted to hightail out of the building. So did I. "I have no idea. I don't even know where the auditorium is," I said, furrowing my eyebrows in confusion. "They could have at least given us a warning or something." "I do, but I want to skip." "You?" she replied, running her hands through her fiery hair. "Yes, I do, but I'm pretty sure they're going to have a roll or a checklist." I sighed, slumping against the wall. Times like these I wished I had run away. "Attention! All women must report to the auditorium in 5 minutes. All women!" the intercom speaker stressed loudly. "We don't get a choice, do we?" Avery grumbled, rubbing her forehead. I shook my head, trudging behind her. She turned into hallways, through corridors, and around bends till we stopped at a large door. Pushing it open, we stepped into a large room, filled with hundreds of chairs, and a large stage at the front. Looking around, there were so many girls. It was like a sea of blondes, brunettes, black and red. It was bloody freaking weird. Everyone looked like they came from a different place. But they all had the typical traits of a wolf shifter, muscly but thin body structure, agile reflexes, and all that stuff. Then I saw her. Typical American blonde, with the sparkly ocean blue eyes, bleach blonde wavy hair, and the scarily thin, model-like body. Jamila, the bitch from hell. I went to high school with her. She was the queen bee of the school. Everyone was under her spell except me. I saw through her fake facade she wasn't one of those sluttish whores or typical queen bees. She was the much, much, much worse one. The type which you should avoid at any cost. She made allies with everybody without them knowing it. She made sure everybody loved her. If anybody got on her bad side, then that person was in for hell, because she would suck up to the student body and make them pity her. Then she'd strike, using everybody as a knock-on effect. I had seen it in action. I remember one boy, Jared, who saw her kissing her best friend's boyfriend, Jared, went and told her best friend, who soon made it ex-best friend, including her boyfriend. Later that day, Jamila told everybody that Jared was telling a lie to try and tear her from her best friend, Melanie. They all believed her, giving Jared shit for telling lies and for trying to split up, basically sisters. I believed him, and Jamila knew I was a potential threat, even though I wasn't as popular as her. I still had power over some of the most influential people in the school. The media club, I was the head of them, and controlled the radio over the school, informing them of future important school days, parties, and a whole lot more. I also had to make videos and had cameras set up all around the school. She knew I caught the kiss on tape at 2 angles and there was nothing she could do about it. But I decided I wouldn't mess with the school social system, so I supported Jared and told everybody in the media club that he had mistaken Jamila as Melanie. Because they both has the bleach blonde hair. It was enough to satisfy them, and word soon got around that it was all a mistake. Jamila still hadn't got over the fact that I had more power over her then, and boy could she hold a grudge. She looked over at me with shock. Then it instantly turned to jealousy, then anger. Melanie was still by her side as always, but this time she had dyed her hair a brilliant fire, truck red. At least it was easier to tell them apart now. "Hey, over there!" Avery pointed her finger to some seats near the corner of the stage. I nodded smiling and swerved around people, trying not to bump into anyone. Settling down in our seats, I looked around, seeing everyone start to sit down in their seats, and the chatter finally calmed down. Someone cleared their throat as a man took his place at the podium. "Good morning, ladies. It is wonderful to have you all here. Now I'm sure you all know why you're here, am I correct?" The man on the podium smiled, gazing over the crowd. The crowd applauded, some women screaming from excitement. "Excellent! Now I'm sure you all can't wait to meet you mates. So let's begin," he cheered, clapping his hands together. There was a rustle in the red curtains to the right of him, and then a small, chubby man stepped out and handed a roll to the man standing on the podium. "Now, I'm going to read out the dates of which you will each be having you blood extracted. This is going alphabetically from your last names," he said with less enthusiasm. I'm pretty sure he didn't want to read out all the names. Heck, even I wouldn't. There are hundreds of us here. If you don't hear your name, you can report to the main office, where they have the dates and times for your par odorlux, he continued, almost robotically. Here we go. The 23rd, 10 a.m. is Jenna Abbey, Louise Abfort, Victoria Adonix, Sarah Agura, Miley Amar. I stopped listening and waited for the E's. It was a painfully long time before he started calling out a last name starting with an E. Freya Eastwood, Julia Ensergaret, Hilaria Estepol. On the 25th, 3 p.m. is Lyra Evans, Samantha Ezeret. I didn't bother listening as they had already called out my name. On the 25th, at 3 p.m., I would be getting my blood examined. This was it. There was no escaping now. As soon as they figure out who my mate is, they'll contact him, telling him my details, giving him my boxes of items from home. They will probably add in details and pictures of me for the heck of it. I am doomed forever. Lee, are you there? Earth to Lee. Hello. A hand slapped me lightly on the face, startling me from my thoughts. We aren't going to escape this, are we? I asked sadly. Avery was just like me. She didn't want to meet her mate either. But her reason was entirely different to mine. She just wanted to live the party life. I didn't want to be controlled and have my freedom taken away from me. Don't worry, she smiled weakly. We'll get through this, with or without a mate by our sides. It seemed like she was trying to convince herself instead of me. But it still felt good to know that there was a person other than me who believed that you didn't have to have a man by your side to get through life. Just because we were girls doesn't mean we can't get through life without a mate. It was so sexist it made me sick. Come on, let's go. We don't have to be here anymore. We should savor our freedom while it lasts. Anyway, I'm getting my blood taken on the 25th as well, except at 4 p.m. She dragged me out of the room. Most of the women there were telling their friends that their mate would probably be an alpha or something powerful like that. It was very unlikely. There were only about 70 packs in America, which means 70 alphas. Most of them probably already have their mates, so good luck with that. Walking out of the stuffy room with Avery, it was then I realized how trapped we were. There were guards positioned at every door, and at the entrance, there were a couple dozen more. It was like our own personal prison, Lyra's POV. It was the day, the 25th of December, the day which will decide my fate. Oh shit, I have never, ever worried this much before, not even when I made my speech for media captain at my high school or when I went for an interview for university. I think I was going insane. Avery was being much calmer than me, considering I was pacing the floor, muttering incoherent words. "Calm down, will you?" she yelled with wide eyes. "You're making me nervous." "Sorry, I can't help it. In about half an hour, my fate will be sealed. My possessions will have been sent to my mate, and there is nothing I can do about it," I growled, punching a hole in the wall next to me. FML. "Trust me, I'm not ecstatic about this either, but damaging my room will not help you," she argued, falling down onto her bed. Banging my head against the wall, I released a string of curses. "Neither will that," I heard Avery mumble into the sheets of her bed. I rolled my eyes, looking down at my knuckles. The bruises were quickly healing. "Do you need to get your hand looked at? You hit the wall pretty hard. Look, there's a hole," she gaped, pointing to the large dent in her wall. "That's not natural," she shrieked. I shook my head, a soft smirk playing on my lips. "Remember when I said my senses were as strong as an already shifted wolf? Well, yeah, so is my strength and my healing capabilities." I trailed off, looking at her reaction. Recognition passed through her eyes as the widened comically. "Oh yeah, I remember. It is pretty cool, though," she argued. A look of wonder crossed her features. "If I had that, then I wouldn't have had to go to the doctors so many times. My mother was obsessed with image," she sighed, closing her eyes, probably remembering the times with her mother. A surge of jealousy rushed through me, almost knocking me over. Why was I jealous? I was never jealous, but deep down I knew the real reason. I wanted a mother. It was pretty cruel how I got dumped in front of a stranger's house with no details or anything. Of course, the people that found me immediately turned me into the orphanage, my personal hell hole. But life is never fair. A simple example is now. "I hope we end up in the same pack," I heard Avery mutter. I turned around, nodding my head in agreement. I really did want someone I knew to be in my future pack. Most females changed packs, but some very few found their mates in their first pack, which was very rare. Of course, some were rouges, the nice term for a loner that no one gives a shit about. They were usually banished from their pack or decided they didn't want to be controlled by their alpha. Some rouges made packs of their own, but the council had to agree to it, or it would be called an illegal pack and would immediately be terminated. Of course, it was very hard to get back into any pack once you've been banished from your pack, because people would automatically assume that you've done something bad, which makes you a bad person. In a pack, everyone knows everyone, and they are virtually family. Walking towards Avery's bed, I flopped down next to her, grabbing a pillow and stuffing my face in it. What are you doing?" Avery chuckled, lifting the pillow off my face. "Trying to disappear," I moaned. Grumbling under my breath, I muttered, "Obviously that's not working." Smirking at me, she nodded her head in mock agreement. "Obviously." Narrowing my eyes at her, I sat back up, picking up a pillow discreetly at the same time. "Don't destroy my dreams," I whined, fling the pillow I had in my hand at her head. She ducked, the pillow brushing the top of her bright hair. "No need to get violent," she mockingly scolded, shoving my shoulder. Snorting, I shoved her back, causing her to fall off the bed. Putting my hand over my mouth, I desperately tried to stifle my laughter. "I'm sorry," I gasped through my laughter. I forgot to hold in my strength. She glared at me, huffing, then crawling back onto the bed. "Next time, remember," she huffed. "I could have gotten seriously hurt." I nodded my head in agreement, knowing that it couldn't be possible. Ding, 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 ding! My eyes widened in fear. I clumsily turned around, staring into Avery's nervous eyes. God, please not let it be. "All 3 p.m. women who are to get their blood taken, please report to room 32, Wing C. Thank you." My heart dropped. This announcement had been going on for the past couple of days, ringing in each hour. I wish I had one more hour, or at least a minute. All day I had been moping around the cafeteria, while other girls giggled excitedly, saying that they wished that their time was sooner. Smiling weakly, I turned to Avery, giving her a big hug. At least I didn't have to go through this alone. "Don't worry about it, you'll be fine," she stressed, smiling half-heartedly back. Shrugging my shoulders, I headed for her door. Her room was already in Wing C, so it was only a couple of doors down. Taking a deep breath, I stopped in front of room 32. A maid walking past gave me a weird look, ignoring her. I pushed open the door, and there was a very plain, white, sterilized room. There were a couple of benches to sit on, and a pastel green curtain dividing half of the room. Looking around, there were already 6 other girls there. A lady with a clipboard came up to me. Looking up, she nodded at me. "Good afternoon. You must be Miss Lyra Evans. What a very peculiar name," she talked as if she was still stuck on the 1800s. Very posh, precise, and formal. Smiling sweetly, I nodded, going along with what she was talking about. "You will be getting your blood taken out after Hilaria, dear. Please wave your hand. She's next after Julia. You'll be the first for the 3 p.m. arrivals." "Okay, dear." I nodded mutely. All I wanted to do was to scream at her. I didn't want this, but then they would probably have a guard keep me down. Sitting next to the girl called Hilaria, she had black hair, with doe, brown eyes, and very tan skin. She was on the tall side, and wouldn't stop yapping about how she couldn't wait to meet her mate. Tuning into the conversation, she turned to me. "How about you? What would you like your mate to be?" she asked with wide eyes. I gave her the "Are you serious?" look and smirked. I seem to be doing that a lot these days. "I don't want to meet my mate. In fact, I don't want to be here at all." I smiled sickly and dared her to give me shit with my eyes. She gasped dramatically. "Why would you not want to find your mate? You're crazy," she shrieked, looking at me as if I had grown 2 heads. "Simple, I don't want to meet him." I shrugged, turning away from her, instantly ending the conversation. By that time, everyone had turned up and was staring at me incredulously. What? Not everyone in the whole world was brainwashed to believe they wouldn't survive without their mate. That was complete and utter bullshit. "But you, she stuttered, squinting her eyes. She slumped in her seat, staring ahead weirdly. By now everyone was whispering about me. It paid to have shifter hearing, even though they didn't know that. "Hilaria Estapol, you're next," the lady said, looking extremely bored. Hilaria squealed and rushed up to the curtains. At the same time, another girl exited them. Her face had tears streaming down them. I was guessing she was Julia. She started sobbing and rushed up to a group of girls. My mate is the Omega of the granite stone. Pack. She sobbed into one of the girls, her chest heaving up and down. Shh, it's gonna be okay, don't worry about it. He's your mate. You guys are meant for each other. Inside, I was gagging, so what if he was at the bottom of the chain in one of the weakest packs? This is what's said before. People were too obsessed with ranks and image. The thing that scared me the most was how quickly she found out who her mate was. Would I find mine in 5 minutes like she did? I hope not, but I knew by tomorrow I would know. Lyra Evans, you're next, said that bored lady. I kind of felt sorry for her. She must have to face screaming and giggling girls all the time. Trudging up to the curtains, I pushed it to the side slightly and stepped in. There was a young doctor there, with machines and blood samples lined up all around her. She had dark brown hair, almost black, with soft chestnut brown eyes. Oh, hello, come have a seat. She ushered me to a seat, placing a needle on the table next to me, wiring it up with a machine. I'm Dr. Chow. I'm going to be taking your blood for obvious reasons. Just make yourself comfortable, and we shall begin. She cheered. I liked her. She seemed to be the type of happy, go-lucky people. She stuck the needle in my forearm and started up the machine. At the top of the machine, there was an empty plastic bag. Just after she started the machine, I felt a weird sucking sensation in my arm, and it started to hurt a lot. Gritting my teeth, I turned towards the doctor. Is it supposed to feel like this? I murmured, biting my lip. Yeah, sorry about that. A lot of the girls cry when I start the machine. You seem to be handling it well. She mused, checking the bag that was starting to fill from my blood. Then she suddenly gasped, her mouth gaping open. She quickly pressed some buttons on the machine and started to study the bag. Getting a bit freaked out, I looked up to the bag that was starting to fill with my blood. It was virtually black. It just had the slightest ting of reddish-brown, and it was freaking me out, as well as the doctor. Oh my, she gasped. She quickly pressed a button on the machine. The weird feeling in my arm stopped as she took out the needle. She came over with a bandage, but paused as she was about to put it on. Looking at my arm, I realized the cut from the needle had already healed, and it looked as if she never put it in. I cringed inside. She quickly put the bandage down and started recording notes, mumbling to herself as she kept glancing up at me and the blood-filled bag. Is everything okay? I asked. I was slowly starting to fill up with dread. Why had I come here? Yes, everything is better than okay, she beamed at me. Whoa, Bob, polar much? Narrowing my eyes at her, I silently asked her why. Oh, yeah, I seem to have a match to your blood, and you'll never guess who it is. Please don't tell me. I quickly pleaded with her. I don't want to know. You don't want a mate, do you? She nodded, not even needing me to answer. Smiling at her, I was grateful she didn't judge me straight away. Neither do I. Well, at first I did, but then I found out my mate was killed a week before I found out who he was. I was so sad. I cried myself to sleep every night. But you know what? I moved on. I realized I didn't need a mate to live my life, she smiled faintly, as if recalling the memory. But don't you worry, you have an amazing mate. I know him personally myself, she chuckled. I'll tell him who you are, but I won't tell you. You seem very persistent on not knowing. More like delaying. I corrected her. What's the point of fighting when you know you'll lose? I just wanted to get out of here right now and never come back. She nodded in agreement. Standing up, she handed me a light green piece of paper folded in half. Don't open it, of you who don't want to know who your mate is. Show a friend, maybe, but after that, leave it in your suitcase till you meet him, she advised me, pushing me towards the curtains. Here's my number if you're ever in trouble. And it's you mate's fault, she smirked. I'll give him a good bashing. Beaming at her, I left the safety to the curtains and exited the room, gripping the paper tightly. Turning the corner for Avery's room, I bumped into a maid. I seemed to be doing that a lot lately, and dropped the folded paper on the floor. Quickly muttering an apology to the maid, I dropped to the floor and picked up the paper. But I didn't realize that it had unfolded, and his name was in clear view. Gasping, I crawled away from the piece of paper as if it had a disease. Right then, Avery came out of her room and her eyes widened as she took in my appearance. What happened?" she stuttered. I pointed to the paper. She picked it up and then read the name of my mate. Her hand flew to her mouth in shock. "No way." She trailed off, staring at the paper weirdly. "Yes way, Avery. My mate is Blake Wilson, the alpha of the Full Moon Pack." Lyra's POV. Staring up at the ceiling, I contemplated running away. Even though the idea was virtually impossible, it made me feel better thinking about it. Sighing, I turned over, sinking my face into the soft covers of my temporary bed. "I don't see why you're sad," I gasped, sitting up. I looked around frantically, searching for the person who said that. I sniffed the air and turned up with no sense. Furrowing my eyebrows, I quietly rose up off my bed and looked around the bathroom and all the room. Narrowing my eyes, I crossed my arms over my chest and sniffed the air one more time. Nothing. Growling in defeat, I shuffled over to my bed and looked over to the light green paper, folded 100 times, resting on the bedside table. It had creases everywhere, and I was proud of it. Opening the curtain next to my bed, I gazed out to the full moon. All that crap about how the moon gave you powers isn't true. I don't even know how people thought of it. But most shifters did like to run under the full moon. Weird, huh? Taking a seat on top of my bed, I thought about how lucky Avery was. She told me that it would take a bit longer to determine who her mate was because she had gotten a more common blood color. She said hers was dark, but more of a deep rose red color. Unlike mine, ironic how I just had to get a high-ranking mate when other girls would have killed for position, and I barely gave a shit. Right now I wished I was Avery, or even a man. Life would be so much simpler. I know when I meet my mate, he'll barely let me out of his sight. Hell, I'd have bodyguards everywhere because I'm an alpha female, and of the most important pack. It's not like I can't defend myself or anything. I was the best fighter out of my previous pack, the Oakwood pack. We weren't exactly well known, but we definably weren't one of the weakest packs. We still had some influence. Looking out, the moon was partially covered by gray stormy clouds, just like my mood. Slowly, my gaze traveled back to the green paper on the table and the little card that had Miss Chow's number. I didn't even know her first name. Picking it up carefully, I read what it said. Miss Kitty Chow, medicine and surgical expert. White River Pack, professional line, 89642857. Then underneath all the printed script was a scribbled mobile number in red pen. "Call me if you have any problems. I'll be there. 58732250. Smirking slightly, I chuckled at the horribly drawn smiley face. Did all doctors have terrible handwriting? Getting back to the present, I glanced at the digital clock, 11:47 p.m. Whoa, I didn't realize I had been up for so long. Taking in a deep breath, I got under the covers and closed my eyes. Groaning, I mumbled curses as someone pounded on my door. "Go away," I croaked, wincing at my hoarse voice. The door suddenly burst open, and a wide-eyed Avery shot through, closing it after she got inside. She panted slightly, bending over her blue summer dress with leggings underneath. "Yule, pant, never. Guess who? Pant, my pant mate is," she gasped between her uneven breaths. "You're right, there are millions of guys in this world who are mate-less. I don't think I'll have much of a shot." I raised my eyebrows, smiling cheekily at her. She rolled her eyes, coming to a stand in front of me. Fine, I surrendered after she directed her glare at me. "I don't know. Tell me." "Carlos Montalvo, Falcon Pack," she sighed dreamily. I whipped my head around to look at her. "What was that?" I narrowed eyes, giving her the "you've got to be kidding me" look. "What?" she asked, puzzled. "That tone," I said. "When you said his name," I sighed, raising my eyebrows at her. "You don't know who he is, do you?" she said incredulously, raising her eyebrows as well. She's trying to avoid the subject. No, I don't. Am I supposed to?" I questioned. "Well, duh. His father is an actor, a damn famous one as well. I swear, Carlos is one of the hottest people on Earth, aside from your mate." I winced when she said the last part. "I swear, you two were a match made in heaven. You're gorgeous, he's gorgeous. It's not fair. Leave some gorgeousness for the less fortunate." "I don't know what he looks like," I admitted, ignoring the last part of her speech, giving her one of my best smiles, trying to make up for it. Now I knew why his last name rang a bell in my head. His father was an actor. No. Way, she gasped. I shrugged my shoulders, my mouth twitching up on the right side. Are we really going to go through this again? I just want to eat breakfast, I grumbled, picking up some clothes and changing in the bathroom. You mean lunch, right? It's 1:00 right now, she yelled. I could hear her giggling slightly. God, that girl was weird. What? Yep, you slept through the morning, yeesh girl. What were you doing last night? She laughed. I exited the bathroom, slapping my hand across the back of her head. Ah, what was that for? Nothing you're thinking of right now. I ignored her cry of pain. Please tell me she didn't have any energy drinks. Please, please, please. By the way, she called out from behind me as we walked down the corridor. I had mother this morning when I found out who my mate was. I groaned, covering my face with my hands. Go and steal some candy off children or something. Just don't come near me, I yelled, quickening my pace. No, don't leave me here. I'll die without you, she cried dramatically, extending her arms out in front of her. I rolled my eyes. Yep, she definably had mother this morning. Arriving in front of the lunchroom, I didn't have many other delays from Avery. She told me yesterday that when she had energy drinks, she went really hyper. And she was right. Taking a seat at a table after getting food, I wondered if she was in her right mind for asking questions. I guess now she would be more truthful. So, why did you sound so happy when you said your mate's name? I asked. She avoided my question before. Because he looks yummy, she giggled. I frowned, concerned for her. At least I got the truth. Why don't you want a mate? She asked, clasping her hands in front of her. 'Cause I don't need one, I simply said. That wasn't the full answer. Coolios, she quipped, bobbing up and down on her seat. Laughing, I took a sip of my Coke and ate some of my cheeseburger without the pickles. If it was one thing I could not eat, it was pickles. They were cucumbers soaked in evil. My eyes widened at my weird thought. I remember a little 7-year-old girl telling me that at the playground last year. I was walking through the park when I saw a little girl crying all alone. It reminded me of myself. We talked for a while. She told me her name was Haley and that the kids from the park wouldn't let her play with them. When she asked what food I hated the most, I told her pickles. She instantly said that was hers as well. Then she quoted that pickles were cucumbers soaked in evil. I immediately thought cute. The bells of the intercom broke me from my random thoughts. Could Lyra Evans please come to room 12 in the foyer? Lyra Evans, room 12 in the foyer, the intercom speaker drawled. My right eye instantly twitched, and I had a gut feeling this had to do with my mate. Knowing where room 12 was, I reluctantly said goodbye to a giggling Avery, not wanting to leave her alone, and headed outside that dining hall, taking the last piece of my burger with me, eating it along the way. Walking past the same pictures I saw when I first came here, I sighed in frustration. Couldn't they wait until tomorrow or something? Room 12 came up on my right. Wiping my hands on the front of my black skinny jeans, I knocked on the plain white wooden door. Enter, a voice boomed, and I gave the person a weird look through the door. What was this? Medieval times? Twisting the knob, I opened the door and walked through. 2 men stood behind a glass desk. The left one was whispering quietly, but I could still hear him. We have to send her. If we don't, he could declare war over us. You know how alphas are over their mates. Not only that, but we're talking about the full moon pack here. The guy on the left whispered frantically, glancing at me numerous times. Clearing my throat, I caught attention from them both. You're sending me to my mate, I stated, looking at their expressions. When? They stuttered, their eyes bulging from their sockets. They probably didn't expect me to hear them. Good hearing, I answered their silent question. When? I asked again. Ah? The guy on the right shook his head. Tomorrow, he demanded you be sent to him immediately, or he will come. We just called, telling him of you. They both looked quite scared of me, I'm guessing because I was the mate of the most powerful alpha. I had a lot of influence on him, whether I liked it or not. It felt good. That sounded power. Hungry, but it did. Knowing someone was afraid of stepping out of line because of someone's title. But I knew the full moon pack could overthrow the council, if needed, to get me. After all, I was the future female leader of the pack. I know I was against this stuff, but there wasn't anything I could do about it. "Do I have to?" I asked. I really didn't want to go. They looked at each other nervously. Right then I knew they would force me to go if they had to. "I'm afraid so." The guy on the left trailed off, looking towards the ground, shuffling his feet. Sheesh. It wasn't like I was going to call my mate right now and order them to exiled. I didn't even have his number. Is he coming to get me? Or am I going alone? I raised my eyebrows, watching them still shuffle around nervously. He's coming for you," the guy on the right stuttered, rubbing his neck. "What time?" I sighed, rolling my eyes. I was sick of this. 11 a.m. You, he stopped. "Well, go on," I cried, narrowing my eyes at him. I felt my anger break through. You will be in the auditorium then." Yeah, you'll be in the auditorium," he shuffled, back as if sensing my anger. "What?" Lyra's POV, I had another dream. It was the second one with that wolf in it. I honestly was starting to get freaked out. I've never had two dreams with the exact same thing in it. It always changes. I was sitting on my bed as Avery was sorting through my clothing. I hadn't packed much, but she still insisted that she see what I had. Supposedly this was bonding time, since I told her yesterday what happened in room 12. She demanded that we spend the rest of my time here together. After all, she was going to be in a different pack. I wish we were in the same pack, but the chances of that happening were very slim. Smirking, I watched as she picked up one of my bras and held it to her chest, looking jealous. "No fair," she whined. "How come you get the D's and I'm stuck with stupid B?" She huffed, frowning. "Trust me, Aves, it wasn't something I could control." I laughed while rolling my eyes. Most of the effects of her drinking yesterday had worn off, but she still had small quirks. It was quite amusing. Scowling at me, she shoved the bra back into my suitcase roughly. Hey! No need to tear up my clothes," I teased, holding my hands up in front of my face. No need to get jealous, I thought, but I wisely kept that comment to myself. She would kill me if I said that aloud. I may have rapid healing skills, but I don't feel like screwing this day up because I couldn't keep my mouth shut. "I wish we were in the same pack," she sighed, her mood instantly doing a 180. I nodded in agreement, offering her a sad smile, looking towards the clock. I realized I had 10 minutes till I had to go to the auditorium. A knock sounded at the door. "Excuse me, miss, but I must take your baggage to the entrance to save time," she said quietly, looking everywhere but my eyes. They probably tell them do that, I gave a small smile and handed the small girl my suitcase. Her eyes widened when she saw my little suitcase. Is this all?" she asked, surprised, not in a rude way, but more in an interested way, as if every other girl she has met carried 42 large suitcases like in those cliché movies. "Yeah, I usually pack light," I shrugged, waving her by as she shut the door softly. Turning to Avery, my lip turned down a bit when I noticed the time. 5 more minutes. "We've got 5 minutes till we have to go down there," I scowled, kicking the floor with my silver gladiators. "Do we have to go?" Avery asked in exasperation, blowing her fringe out of her blue eyes. "Yeah, you know my mate wants to meet me there," I growled, annoyed that he couldn't do it in a quieter location. "He's probably already arrived," she stated. "I wonder why we just whisk you away now that you guys are in the same building," she grumbled, rolling her eyes, muttering males under her breath. "Could all women please report to the auditorium? All women to the auditorium, please." A different intercom speaker drawled this time. My heart hammered in my chest as I thought of all the possible situations that could happen when he found me in the auditorium. "You've got my phone number, right?" she checked, chewing her bottom lip nervously. I didn't get why she was nervous. Shouldn't I be? "Let's go," I sighed, reluctantly trudging towards the auditorium. It seemed like it took forever, but in actual fact, it took 5 minutes to reach the auditorium. Each step felt like I was going for a death sentence, when in fact it was the polar opposite. A man was standing outside the doors. His head was turning from left to right, as if he was searching for someone. When his gaze swiped over me, he quickly checked his hand for something and then looked back up. Nodding to himself, he jogged over to where I was. "Excuse me, miss. A lot people were saying that to me lately, but you must be Lyra Evans. Please follow me." The tone in his voice left no room for objecting as he led me away. "Wait," I stopped, digging my feet into the marble floor. I'll only go if my friend, I gestured to Avery, comes. He grunted, nodding before taking off again towards the front seats of the auditorium. We stopped at the middle front row. These are your seats. Don't run off. I've been told you don't want a mate. I will come back to check on you, he said calmly, shifting his gaze over Avery, looking disinterested. Scowling at him, I took the seats and watched as he walked away. Do you really want to listen to him? Avery asked. A mischievous look took place in her eyes. Nope, I smirked, popping the pea. Then let's go. She jumped up, and we raced between the crowd of people until we got to the back row, which luckily was completely vacant. Taking our seats in the furthest corner, we giggled as we saw the man come back to check if we were there. He had a dumbfounded expression on his face, probably not expecting us to have moved. We kept peeking at him through the gaps of our seats. By now, most people had taken their seats and were chatting animatedly between one another. The man placed his hand over his earpiece and mumbled something I couldn't hear. He then scanned his eyes over the crowd, but stopped as he sniffed the air. He started for our direction, as I cursed under my breath, silently wishing shifters could smell so good. There you are. He picked me up by my arm and started to drag me out of my seat. Completely ignoring Avery, she trailed behind us slowly. Let go of me. I gritted through my teeth, not liking the fact that he was touching me. Or what? He mocked, sending me an I'm so much better than you look. Making a wild decision, knowing this would throw him off course, I used the only weapon I had at the moment. I'll tell my mate, and I'm sure you know who he is. I smirked, loving the expression his face showed as soon as he heard what I said. Just come with me, he stuttered. He looked like a deer caught in headlights as he led us back down to our seats. That's what I thought, I muttered under my breath, knowing he would be able to hear me. He stiffened, but chose to ignore that comment. Smart boy. When he left, Avery leant over to me and whispered, You play dirty, you know. I chuckled after hearing her comment. I realized, but I didn't want him touching me, so I used the only thing I could think of. I laughed, but stopped when I realized the whole auditorium was dead silent. You could probably hear a pin drop. Looking over at Avery, Shia had a frightened but nervous expression on her face, but she wasn't looking at me. She was looking in front of me. Exactly who touched you? A deep, gruff voice growled. I gulped. My heart started picking up its pace as my palms started to get sweaty. Everyone knew if you got those symptoms, you were either sick or it was your mate. I was going for the latter. Blake's POV. Exiting the car, I felt better as I stretched my numbing limbs. It was totally worth it, though. Traveling across America was worth it for her. Alpha Wilson, everyone is ready in the auditorium as you requested. A small, balding man stuttered, looking towards the floor. I thought it was ridiculous. It was like they thought I was going to murder them with my eyes. That was highly unlikely. Giving a stiff nod, I walked through the mansion. I had been here twice before, for my Par Ordo Lux and for the coronation for my Alpha title. I hated this place, so I avoided it at all costs. But since my mate was here, I had to come get her. Kitty had informed me that my mate wasn't too persuaded with the idea of being tied down to one person, especially her mate. That made my wolf growl possessively. Heading down a large corridor, I still remembered this place as if it was yesterday that I had gotten my blood taken. It was quite a weird color. It was almost black, with a slight reddish tinges to it. The nurse had fainted when she saw the color, so by then everybody had come in to see what the commotion was about. Everyone knew my father had a dark blood color, but not nearly as much as mine. Opening the side door to the stage, I stepped through, only wanting to find my mate and get out of here. Then I heard it. The sweetest voice I had ever heard in my life. It wasn't high-pitched and squeaky, but deeper and slightly husky. I wanted to hear it every day, non-stop. You play dirty, you know, an unfamiliar voice chuckled. I realized, but I didn't want him touching me, so I used the only thing I could think of. My mate laughed. My wolf roared, raging about how he was going to kill the man that had touched what was ours, and even more so desperate to find out how she got rid of him. Storming through the curtains, I didn't wait to make an appearance. The whole auditorium went quiet, and my mate stopped laughing. I couldn't see her face, but I knew she was mine. Her hair was a dark chocolate color, with strands of blonde through it, all the way down to just above the middle of her back. It was wavy and looked untamable, but I liked it that way. My mate froze, but it was hard to hear anything but the blood roaring in my ears. Remembering what she said earlier, the anger came back at full force, but I had to keep it in. The last thing I wanted was my mate to be scared of me. "Exactly who touched you?" I growled, my possessive instincts kicking in. She turned around, and my eyes widened at her beauty. Whoa, was she hot? Dark amber eyes studied me calmly as she kept her face black. She had perfectly tan skin, long, thin, threaded eyebrows, and full, light pink lips. Her nose wasn't perfectly straight, but it suited her face. In all, she was gorgeous. A small, confident smile took over her face, and God, did she look amazing with it. "Oh, hello," she said, sounding the least surprised. "Don't worry, it's nothing you need to worry about." She waved it off like it was nothing. Damn right it was something. My wolf roared, clawing to take over and show her it was more than that. Looking at her posture, she looked unbelievably calm. It was as if the pull for each other wasn't bothering her. Questioning my senses for indicating my mate, I looked over what mates were supposed to feel. "Bullshit! She's our mate, you retard." Glaring at my wolf internally, I knew it had to be her, as my wolf rarely got so worked about something like that, and he rarely ever called me names or insulted me. Smiling at her, all my anger dissipated as soon as I looked into her eyes. "Come on." I cocked my head to the right, where the exit was. "We have to go." She reluctantly stood up, giving the girl next to her a hug, before whispered goodbye. Taking her hand, she tried to tug it back out, but I gripped it tightly, making sure I didn't hurt her, and pulled her out of the still silent room. As soon as we were out the auditorium door, the chatter started to rise, and girls either sounded jealous or happy. It was giving me a headache as well as my mate, as I could feel her emotions through the already stable bond. "How can you?" I asked. How could she still hear them? There were at least 13 walls between the auditorium and us. "Heightened senses," she shrugged. I sighed, looking ahead. My mate didn't seem too interested in me. That had to change. Blake's POV. I watched my mate stare out the window of the car. She seemed deep in thought about something, and my God, damn wolf wouldn't stop yapping. Rubbing my temples, I felt a headache. It had been there for an hour, but it felt like it wasn't part of me, almost as if it was through a link. "It's our mate, you idiot. She's got a headache. Help her." He demanded. I can't ever recall a time when he was so pushy about a matter. Hell, I can't even remember a time when he was so happy. But hey, this was about my mate. "You've got a headache," I stated confidently, studying her face. She looked over at me and nodded, not saying anything. "Car sickness," she smiled weakly and continued to look out the window. I narrowed my eyes at her, willing the truth to come out of her by staring at her back. "I'm fine, really," she soothed. It wasn't very effective. Deciding to let it go for now, I wanted us to get to know each other better. "So, which pack did you come from?" I wanted to know who her former pack was. When the council rang me up, saying they had found my mate, I thought that it wouldn't be possible for another to have the same blood color as me and not notice. But it was. "Oakwood Pack, Alpha Jacob," she instantly spoke, as if it was drilled into her brain. I quickly looked up to my left, a horrible habit I have when I'm trying to remember something, and I suddenly remember the Oakwood Pack mentioned in one of my pack meetings. Yeah, I know them," I confirmed, watching as shock quickly passed through her eyes. "You know them?" Disbelief coated her voice as she raised both her eyebrows. I noticed was something she did when she thought she was hearing bullshit. "Yeah, you guys are in Ohio," I guessed, remembering something else along the borderlines of that in the conversation about the Oakwood Pack. "You guessed, didn't you?" she smirked. It was just the tilt of her lips, but it instantly lifted my mood. "How did you?" I trailed off. How the hell did she know? "Your face, it's as easy as a book to read. But I think that's just me," she said to herself, scrunching her chin a little. It was a bit weird, considering all my life I have been taught to hide my emotions, and suddenly the person I just met hours ago acts as though my emotions were written on my forehead. "Don't look so shocked," she teased. "I understand that I'm amazing and everything, but at least pretend you saw that coming." My mouth hung open. It was scary how alike our personalities were. Usually it was me who was acting like that. She just comes in, and already I feel like we were long-lost friends. But more than that, I just don't get how I can't read her emotions. "Why can't I read yours?" I asked, confused. A guarded look instantly took upon her face, and her eyes flashed with pain. But before I could really get a look at it, it was gone. "Ah!" She looked like she was hacking her brain for an excuse. "It's just a gift," she lied. I desperately wanted to ask what happened to her life before I found her, but I knew she would try to avoid the subject. "Wish I had it," I muttered, going along with what she wanted me to believe. "One day, I will find out." Lyra's POV. Releasing a silent breath, I was thankful that he didn't question where I had learnt how to read people's emotions like that. I knew he knew I lied. It was obvious, also because he was a horrible actor. I thought he would be a stuck-up asshole who only cared for himself, but I was proven wrong. That didn't mean I still wasn't going to try and live my life. I knew I couldn't run away. His pack needed me as their alpha female. Only the mate of the alpha can be the alpha female. It was absurd to think that anyone else would do it. That's why they thought of the blood coloring thingy, so alphas could find their mates earlier to help their packs. My car sickness was starting to get worse as I gritted my teeth, desperate for Blake not to find out and think I'm weak. My vision started to spin, and I leant my head against the cool window to stop myself from falling head, first into the back of the driver's seat. Taking in deep breaths, I counted till 3 and then exhaled, hoping to find some relief. However, that did not work, as I clenched my eyes shut, squeezing them as tight as I could, hoping the pain would take my mind off the headache. Another bolt of pain brought me back to reality, as I felt myself let out an involuntary gasp. It was getting really bad now, as my whole body started to burn, and my headache increased by 10-fold. Obviously, my gasp had caught my Blake's attention, as his eyes widened in confusion, and his irises kept flicking back and forth between his normal gray and midnight bluish black. It was a sign that he was battling with his wolf. Throwing my head back, I pretended I was trying to find a comfortable place to sleep without looking like I was in pain. I was never carsick. In all my life, the only car I've thrown up in was my social worker's because he fed me too much for lunch, insisting that I ate it all. Look how that ended. My breathing pattern had picked up, and I was panting lightly. I wanted to curl up into a ball, but my limbs wouldn't move. It was as if I was frozen solid. Turning over the slightest, I saw Blake blink his eyes in confusion. He was looking around and then closed his eyes in concentration. Unexpectedly, he jerked forward. He whipped his head around and stared at me accusingly. Waiting for a second, it looked like he was asking for advice. Then he nodded his head to himself. Without consent, he unbuckled his seatbelt, reached over and grabbed me, swiftly pulling onto his lap. "What are you? Shut up. Why didn't you tell me that you started to feel the effects of not being claimed by me? Have you never heard? If an alpha doesn't claim his 8 straight after meeting them, the mate starts to feel like they're getting stabbed and burned at the same time. Not only that, but since I'm one of the most powerful alphas, the effects are even worse," he cried. I stayed quiet. The after effects of the haven't been claimed thingy really wore me out. His eyes softened as soon as he saw my sleepy eyes. I really wanted to push him off, but I didn't have the strength. Sighing deeply, he laid back, not letting me get out of his arms as I squirmed around. "Stop moving," he growled. His eyes had turned a shade darker, and he held me tighter. Giving up, I decided I would deal with him later. I turned my head, buried it in his neck. I would probably regret this later. Waking up, I stretched my arms over my head and let out a big yawn. Rolling over to the side, I realized I wasn't the only one on this bed. "What the?" I trailed off, trying to adjust to the lighting of the room. I blinked rapidly before coming across a dark mop of slightly wavy black hair. The person groaned before curling an arm around my waist and drawing me closer. "Mate," the person muttered and smiled in his sleep. I tried shuffling away, but then he just held on to me tighter. How the hell did I get here anyway? "Blake," I sighed. He just mumbled some words and then moved his head towards my neck. "Blake," I growled, only to have him stuff his face further into my neck. Then I had an idea. Reaching up behind me, I grabbed a pillow and ran my face all over it, covering it with my scent. Slowly pulling his arm, I quickly slipped the pillow in the place I previously occupied. Waiting for a couple of seconds, I watched as he sniffed the pillow, scrunching up his face, then sniffing it again, only to press himself closer to it. I looked at him weirdly as I headed towards the door to the bathroom. Observing the room, we looked to be in a hotel, as there were mini shampoos and soaps. Using those, I had a shower and put on the free robe they had hanging on a rack. Tying the knot, I saw clean toothbrushes and used those as well. Slipping out of the bathroom, I looked up to find Blake had just woken up and was growling, looking around the room like he had lost something that could cost him his life. Clearing my throat, I watched amused as his head snapped up. He took 4 long strides before grabbing me into a hug and breathing in my scent again. What are you doing?" I asked, creeped out by the way he was acting. I had never seen males act like this around their mates at my old pack. Sure, they kissed and stuff, but never started sniffing each other's throats and growling when they couldn't see each other. He sighed a deep, long, content sigh. I felt his eyelashes brush my shoulder as he closed his eyes. Finally, having enough, I pushed him off me and stared at him like he was a weirdo. Raising my eyebrows, I expected an explanation. "Heh," he chuckled nervously, rubbing the back of his neck. "I was just, calming my wolf down. He sort of went berserk when he woke up, found you weren't next to him." "Then why do?" I gestured to my neck. "Your scent calms my wolf and me," he added. Moving his hair out of his face, he bent over the bedside table and retrieved some clothing. "Here, you might want to change out of that robe. My wolf is getting restless," he stated, turning to give me the clothes. He didn't move. "Well," I pointed to the bathroom door, "aren't you going to leave so I can change?" "But I don't want to. I like it right here," he pouted. I glared at him, giving his chest a hard push, but having no such luck with moving him. "Go have a shower or something, and don't you rush so you can see me change," I called after him. Scoffing when I heard him curse under his breath. "I heard that!" Putting on the clothes, they somehow fit him perfectly. He gave me a gray singlet top with League 56 written on in blue stamp, and a medium blue denim ripped shorts. I don't know how he got the right size when none of these clothes were from my suitcase. Getting my shoes, which I found by the door, I put them on only to have Blake just rush out of the bathroom wearing a black V-neck and dark blue denim jeans. Raising my eyes at him for us eagerness, he smiled sheepishly, running his hands through his dripping wet hair. I wasn't impressed. Feeling the strong bond between us, I sighed in exasperation. It was getting harder and harder to ignore him. "Come on, we have to get the plane to make it back on time to the pack house. Everyone is dying to meet you. Then we will drop you suitcase with the rest of the stuff at our place," he told me, leaving no room for argument. Nodding my head, I followed him to a black SUV with tinted windows. "So where are we going?" I asked. I at least deserved to know where I was going to spend the rest of my life. You don't know?" he asked, looking shocked. "No, one told me. They were all too afraid. Except Dr. Kitty. She was nice," I added, remembering what she said. "Call me of your mate, screw up. I'll be there." "That's probably my fault, but we're going to Florida. That's where the main pack house is." I raised my eyebrows. The main pack house? How many pack houses did he have? "How long does your land stretch?" I asked. Most people I talked to said his pack land went over a couple of states. I didn't believe them. He looked deep in thought. "From Oklahoma to North Carolina, all the way down till the border of Mexico," he said thoughtfully. I gaped at him. "That was almost a freaking quarter of America." "Yeah, I know, that's a lot. But I have a lot of betas. It helps a lot," he said, nodding his head. "They each control a large city or small state. I have to check on them once a year, so I have to travel sometimes, but you're welcome to come along." I nodded, not really listening to what he was saying. A quarter of America? A freaking quarter. How the hell is one person supposed to rule that much land? "That's why you're here," the voice said again. I narrowed my eyes. Was I going insane? I was hearing voiced inside my head. Was that normal? "How many people are in the main pack house?" I cocked my head to the side, waiting for an answer. "Around 700. But don't worry, it's going to be okay," he soothed after seeing my expression. Okay. 700 people. What the hell was I supposed to do? Why did I have to get the mate of the biggest pack in America? Lyra's POV. Looking around the airport, Blake insisted that he would carry my suitcase. I considered it insulting that he wouldn't let me carry it. It was as if he thought I wasn't strong enough to do so. Looking ahead, there were families, businessmen in suits, and elderly couples buying tickets and checking in. Over here, Blake called, pointing towards the first-class check-in. The line was considerably smaller than the others. It only had one person, who fell under the category of the businessman. He had a small suitcase, smaller than mine, and was talking on an iPhone while waving gestures to the lady behind the counter. Whoa, first class, I muttered. I had never been on first class. Growing up in foster homes and orphanages, I lived a very confusing life. I could only have the basic items. Shortly after I turned 16, I got a job in the pack as a warrior. It got me some money, enough to buy an apartment, and pay for school fees and basic necessities. Yeah, I would have had one of my private jets take us, but they're all under maintenance, so first we'll have to do, he shrugged. I stared at him open-mouthed. How can someone talk so easily about how first class wasn't good enough? I've only been on economy, I admitted, and even then I flew rarely. Oh, what did you do for a living? I know you live outside the pack house, he asked, looking at me attentively. I started out as a pack warrior at 16, and then later on I became the general's advisor. Pretty cool job. I said, I loved training and fighting with the pack. It was the one time I could clear my head. His eyes bugged out of his head. General's advisor, he chalked. You started as a warrior, then a year later you go up 6 ranks? Pretty much, I shrugged. I don't see what the big deal is. When he finally calmed down, he had an almost proud expression on his face. What the... Whoa, you must be an amazing fighter. At least I know my mate can defend herself. I ignored the last part of what he said, and the tingly feeling that came with it. The lady at the counter cleared her throat, and we stepped up, him doing all the paperwork and details. After going through the baggage check, we waited outside gate 14 to Florida. Hey, you haven't mentioned anything about your parents. Could all first-class passengers on Flight 34JK to Florida please board the airplane? All first-class passengers. I was thankful for the interruption. I didn't want to have to explain that I didn't have any. He gave me a lopsided smile and started walking towards the hostesses, flashing them the tickets before walking down the never-ending corridor. Walking down the boring hallway to the plane, they had posters for advertisement, such as the Don't Smoke ads and Drink Driving. They also had a whole tub of earphones, but I ignored it. We're in row 2A and B, he informed me, taking my elbow and steering me around the people who were trying to get into their seats. Opening a curtain, we entered a spacey room filled with plush leather seats. There were cup holders and fold-down chairs. This would probably be one of the best flights of my life. Sitting down in our seats, I could help but sink in and sigh in content. Like it? He smirked teasingly. I hit him over the head and nodded, getting ready to sleep. I'm so going to make the most of this. We were in the car and on to the way to the pack house. You have a very unusual name, you know? Blake was starting to annoy me, asking stupid questions about me. I'm mean, really? He asks if I know that my name is unusual. Was he joking? I rolled my eyes, stuffing my hands into the pockets of my denim jeans. Yeah, I do know, I sighed irritably. He just wouldn't hut up and kept asking questions about my personal life. What next? Who I've slept with? He cleared his throat awkwardly. So, what did you do at you former pack? Any boyfriends? He growled at the end, his eyes shifting to a shade darker. Whoa, was I psychic or what? You know the usual. Securing the borderline, having occasional fights with the beta, training. You know that stuff. Had about 2 flings and 1 serious relationship, you? I shrugged. I honestly didn't see the point of asking me that. It would just work up his wolf. He narrowed his eyes accusingly. They turned a few more shades darker, almost black. With who? Did you sleep together? He fired at me, a growl ripping through his throat. That's none of your business. Of course it is, he snapped, his wolf taking over. You're my mate. What I say goes. Did you sleep with him or not? He was really pissing me off now. He goes asking about my personal life, then about who I've slept with. Well, you're my mate. Doesn't that mean I have rights to know who you've slept with? I asked calmly, trying to keep my cool and be the rational one here. No, why should you know who I slept with? You know I'll never cheat on you, he said. I smirked, knowing I had won the battle. His eyes widened as he realized he had lost. His eyes kept flashing back between his normal gray, then to his wolf's black. Fine. He growled deep in his throat. How serious was the relationship? He spit out, as if there was a disgusting piece of shit on his tongue. Jealous, are we? Serious enough to lead on to college, but after I found out he saw his mate at a bar, I dumped him. She doesn't deserve that, I replied, remembering how thankful he was when I told him to get his mate. He was always too soft, didn't have a backbone. College, he stated, a thoughtful look on his face, ignoring the rest of what I said. Yes, college. I'm going in 3 months. What about it? If you're saying I won't be able to attend, you better protect your balls, I threatened, not liking the tone in his voice. It might be a bit hard, considering you are going to be the alpha female of the pack. What courses are you taking and where? My right eye twitched. He better let me go. I'm studying forensic and health psychology at the University of Denver. I winced slightly. Denver was outside of the pack borders. He would never let me attend. But who said he could stop me? Denver's outside of pack borders, you know, he said. Well, I'm that one who's going to the university, so of course I know. He paused, scrunching up his lip a bit, and then looked up. Take online courses, he smiled, as if he figured out the answers to the universe. Why should I, when I got a full scholarship to Denver? They're practically paying me to go there, I stated. Why the hell should I miss out on an opportunity like this for him? I don't think I said you had an option, he suddenly snarled. His wolf had taken over. Taking a few moments for his words to sink in, I started fuming in my seat. Opening my mouth to yell at him, he covered it with his hand. Then it's decided. You'll be taking online courses, he finalized. Looking at him horrified, I growled low in my throat, surprising me. I shouldn't be able to growl, was what a small part of me said in the back of my mind, but the larger part of me was pissed at my mate because he would not let me actually physically go to university. I felt like screaming at him. Taking online courses was just like reading a book about psychology. You had to have experience with people, know people who loved doing what you loved. I felt tears well up in my eyes at the thought of him controlling my life, even who I was going to be. No, I said in a shaky voice. It's not decided. I'm going to Denver whether you like it or not. I don't give a shit if your wolf will start throwing hissy fits, or if you want me to stay at you place because your elders won't approve of it. I am going. I gritted through my teeth, gaining control of my emotions. After my words of resilience registered on his brain, he started shaking in his car seat, his fingernails growing longer and digging into the leather seats. Listen, you are my mate, and what I... Yes, you're right. I am your mate, but that doesn't give you a right to destroy everything I love. Even if it means that I have to go away for long periods of time for about 4 years, get over it. You'll survive. I can come back on breaks. I cut in, stopping his useless rant. I had made my mind, and not even he was going to change my mind. He didn't say anything after that. Closing my eyes in relief, I wondered how long until we reached the pack house. The trees here were greener than in Maine, the place where my former pack lived. I had a feeling we were nearing the pack house, which was in the middle of now. Blake told me that the pack house was in a deep forest, and our house was about 30-minute run in our wolf form, so an hour or 2 drive. Driving deeper onto the middle of where the forest got thicker and darker, the trees becoming more wild and diverse. Looking ahead of the driver, I saw a large dirt road going into the forest. The driver turned into the road. I could feel Blake staring at the back of my head, and it was making me feel all tingly and jittery again. I didn't like it. The dirt road slowly turned into a paved again, and I raised my eyebrows in question. What was the point of that when you're just going to pave it again? So others think it's a dead road, Blake said. I nodded my head. He could probably feel my confusion through the bond. Taking another turn, we came into a huge clearing. Not just huge, it was massive. There was also a giant house, or should I say mansion, probably the pack house. You'll have to answer my questions sooner or later. So did you sleep with him or not? I tensed, not liking the fact that he brought up this topic again. Couldn't he just leave it? Like I said before, it's none of your business, I stated unemotionally. Of course it's my business. I'm your mate. I have a say on everything, you. I roughly opened the door and left it open, storming away from the car. Hey, come back here. Don't walk away from me, Lee, he yelled. I spun around and glared at him. He looked behind me nervously, but quickly covered it up. Don't you call me Lee. You first try to take me dreams away from me. You think that you can have the final say, and everyone will be happy about it, but guess what? That's not true. And then you try to find out about my personal life when you refuse to even mention anything about yours. Well, you know what? Screw you. I wish I never met you, I yelled, causing him to take a step back. His face paled visibly, and I heard gasps and whispers of shock from behind me. Turning around, I see about 500 people all standing there, with either their hands on their mouths or completely still. Swallowing, I spun around and sprinted into the woods. The sounds of people gossiping about me slowly died out as I ran away from the source of my problems. Damn, I was screwed, Blake's POV. Staring out into the crowd, I panicked for the first time. Taking deep breaths, I called my beta over. I need you to sort them out while I look for her, okay? I asked, but he knew it wasn't a question, it was on order. He nodded, a serious look taking over his features. Smiling weakly at him, I let him know I was thankful. After all, he was my best friend. Scanning the crowd, I winced inside. This would cause some permanent damage. Taking in a deep breath, I sought out her scent. Letting my wolf take over, I watched as I sprinted into the forest under my wolf's control. Sniffing the air again, I realized she had long gone. Whoa. My mate was fast. It had been 10 minutes, and I still hadn't caught up to her yet. Her scent luckily hadn't faded yet, but I could go on for 2 or 3 hours sprinting straight. I was just worried that she could go on for longer, also because there was a river an hour ahead, and I didn't want to lose her scent. It was the only thing stopping me and my wolf from going on a rage. The forest was getting denser, but I knew this forest like that back of my hand. When I was little, in my spare time I used to run through these woods. In times like this, it came in handy. Now my wolf was starting to get restless. He didn't like knowing that his mate was running from him. But hey, so was I. It had been an hour, and I still haven't caught up to her. I had no idea how she was outrunning me without her even shifting yet, but I was starting to pant and my footsteps were more sluggish. The sun was setting, and I wanted her out of the forest before nightfall. It was frustrating knowing that you were the cause of it all, but I couldn't stop my wolf from blurting out that comment. When I saw her angered face, I knew I had pushed it too far. My wolf was no liking the uncertainty of knowing that his mate was not pure or not. I didn't care too much of who she slept with. Okay, that was a lie. I was jealous as shit, and I wanted to bash the bastard's face in for seeing her naked. Even that wouldn't be enough. But as she pointed it out, it was hypocritical, and I shouldn't have brought it up if I wasn't willing to be asked the same. My wolf didn't think so, though. He didn't give a shit that it was hypocritical. All he wanted were answers. Of course, my wolf was an asshole and only thought for himself, the pack, and his mate. Everyone else was scum to him. Sometimes having a wolf sucked. I never wanted to annoy her, but my wolf started to get annoyed and broke through for that split second. I admit the first time I asked I was in full control, but after my wolf thought about it, he was desperate to know. "Lyra," I yelled. Desperate times called for desperate measures. My panting was getting worse, and my legs were starting to tire. I was only relying on her scent, and I was fast approaching a river. I had to know where she was exactly. "Come on, Lyra! Where the hell are you?" I cried. Then I heard the trickling of water, and I was 99% sure that she had gone through it. Groaning, I stopped at the edge of the river, peering down into the water. Yep, she had definably gone in it. I would never find her now unless she was nearby. Ripping my shoes off, I dived into the water and emerged on the other side, trying to fight the current. I was worried that the current had dragged her away. As I climbed onto the mossy rocks, I heard a distant cry. My wolf snapped into action, furiously trying to take over, chanting "mate, mate, mate" over and over again, but her didn't have to say it. I recognized her voice. Not caring I was soaked to the bone, I sprinted in her direction, not bothering to dodge the leaves and branches that were in my way. She wasn't making any more sounds, and it was freaking me out. I was too far away to hear her heartbeat. I was worried someone had hurt her. That thought alone made me run twice as fast, desperate to see if she was okay. I knew there were a lot of people who would like to kill me, and now that I had a mate, it was the perfect punishment. They knew that if they hurt or killed her, I would never be the same. I would just be a body with no reason to live. My pack would go down in flames. Then I heard it. The thing I had been waiting for. I could faintly hear her labored breathing, but my wolf was still reckless and would only be happy if he saw her physically. "Hurry up, she could be hurt," my wolf demanded, clawing on the insides of my skull, edging me to run faster than I already was. I clenched my jaw, knowing that it wasn't physically possible to run faster, but I had to get there sooner. Her breaths got louder and louder, and soon enough it felt like she was breathing right next to me. I burst through, into a clearing. Whipping my head around, I saw her in between two large trees. Her face was hidden, resting on her legs. "Shit!" she cursed, groaning slightly. Her hands were clawing on her legs. There was even a large scratch on her left calf, which was healing before my eyes. "Fuck, Lee, what's wrong?" I hissed. She didn't answer, and I wasn't sure if she could hear me or not. She trailed off. "I don't know. Did someone hurt you?" I growled. She shook her head, denying it. Taking hold of the hand which was scratching her calf, I was going to pull her closer, but she started crying out in pain again. "Where does it hurt?" I asked frantically. It was times like these that I wished I had taken those medical courses my mum suggested. I knew getting the pack doctor was useless. It would take well over 2 hours to get here. "Everywhere. It feels like someone is trying to rip me apart," she gasped, throwing her head back and groaning. Those symptoms sounded familiar, and I could help but think I had gone through it myself when I was 16. "Oh, God, no way. This could not be possible." "But the symptoms are all there," my wolf argued. I knew he was right, but I just could come to terms with it. This shouldn't have happened yet, but her groaning only got worse, and I was surprised that she wasn't crying yet. Then a snap only confirmed my thoughts. My mate was having her first shift, without me marking her. Lyra's POV. The river was a good cover-up. Even though I had run for an hour, I knew he was going to follow me. They always do. Continuing to run, I could do this for about another hour before I grew tired. I loved running through the forest. It took your mind off everything, and you could just focus on what's around you. I knew Blake was going to make me join his pack soon, and I was dreading it. Even though I wasn't returning to my pack, I still had the mark of them on the back of my shoulder. It was a small blue, thin circle, about the size of a small glue stick. It wasn't bright in color, but enough to stand out on my skin. Whereas the full moon pack's mark was a large, fiery red circle. It was almost quadruple the size of my old pack's, and the brightness put ours to shame. It would probably take up a quarter of my back, not to mention since I'm going to be the alpha female, I'll have the name Luna scripted on it as well. Luna was the politically correct term for alpha female, but people preferred to call, say, alpha female, so it stuck. Thankfully, the mark doesn't have to be tattooed on. It automatically appears when you join a pack, so that was one good thing. Shaking my head, I realized I had stopped in a clearing. It wasn't much to look at, with the slightly dead grass and trees guarding the sides. It wasn't anything special. Lying down, I looked up. The sun was setting, and the sky was turning orange and pink. It was then I realized I had forgotten to celebrate Christmas. One of the most important celebrations of the year, and I forget. I had no idea why I hadn't though it before, but I guess after relaxing and having nothing to do, it just popped into my brain. Well, it's a little late now. New Year's Eve was in 2 days, and it was one celebration I was not going to miss. After finally getting enough money to move into my own apartment, I haven't been doing anything significant, only working hard at my job to get enough money, then realizing I was moving out anyways. Life's a bitch. Then I started to feel a burning sensation in my fingers and toes. It didn't hurt or anything. It felt like I was losing blood circulation. Then it started to creep up my arms and legs, the numbing feeling getting worse, and then suddenly it was like I had no body at all. I couldn't feel shit. I was freaking out, as when I moved my arms, it felt like I was in another person's body. Then the numbing pain turned into a raging fire that took over my whole body. I scooted backwards in between two trees. The pain was starting to get unbearable, as it felt like I was burning from the inside. It only got hotter and hotter, and I felt like the ground would melt under my feet from the heat. Shit! I cursed as a jolt of pain coursed through my left arm. Gritting my teeth, I tucked my head further between my legs. Fuck, Lee, what's wrong? A familiar voice hissed. Blake. I trailed off. I don't know. Even furring my eyebrows hurt. I mean, what the hell? Did someone hurt you? He growled. I shook my head. That wasn't it. I was even betting it hurt to speak. He took my hand, and for some reason that was the one part of my body that stopped hurting. But I let out a cry because the rest hurt, and he quickly let go, thinking that he was causing more pain. That was not the case. Where does it hurt? He asked. I heard a sense of desperation in his voice. Everywhere. It feels like someone is trying to rip me apart. I gasped through the pain, and I was right. It did hurt to speak or move my mouth. He was silent after that, but then the flames within me rose up even further, and it hurt to even blink my eyes, so I chose to keep them shut. I knew I had scratched myself from holding my legs too hard, but I felt like I was burning from the inside. What the hell was going on? Then the pain stopped. I was about to sigh in relief when a new form of pain took over my body. The bones in my fingers started to break. Oh God, oh God, oh God. Shit, shit, shit. This shouldn't be happening. Blake snarled, sounding angry with himself. Then the bones in my feet did, and weirdly enough, they start to reform. What the... Blake, I croaked, scared. Hey, don't worry. Everything's going to be all right. The bone in my arm suddenly snapped, and I let out a pained yell, trying to keep the tears in. Lifting my head, I leaned it on the tree next to me and opened my eyes. What the fuck, Blake? I feel like I'm in a torture chamber. Tell me what the hell is going on. I cried as the bones in my legs started to break and reshape. He winced, clearing his throat. This might not. Just tell me, I growled, startling us both. You're having your first shift, he mumbled. I was in too much pain to even think about deciphering it. Sighing, I glared at him. Fine, you're having your first shift, he cried, his eyes frantically checking my body for any further damage. My eyes bugged. Did he just say, was this some sick joke? Lyra's POV. Soon enough, most of my bones were broken and I was in tears. I hated being seen as weak, but when all of your bones in your body were being broken and snapped into a different shape, you'd be in a lot of pain too. I almost felt like killing myself. Each snap would cause even more pain, and it seemed like Blake was almost in tears at seeing me like this, and it was goddamn surprising. He was now holding me in his arms. As he rocked back and forth, my sobs were getting louder and louder, but I refused to scream. The bones in my ribs started to snap, and after that was my spine. Supposedly that was the worst one of all, and I didn't know how much I could take. Shh. It's okay, Lee. You're gonna get through this, he soothed, brushing my damp hair across my forehead. I buried my head into his chest. I was in too much pain to care what I was doing. All I wanted was for this to stop, even if it meant I could never shift. I had seen people shift for the first time. I knew the process, but I didn't think that it was this painful. This really hurts, God damn it, I cried, groaning as another rib broke and shifted its position. I could feel Blake's hands shaking, as every time he touched me, it felt like his hands were blocks of ice, and my body hadn't come down from the burning temperature at the start. I know, but it's going to be okay. Do you hear me? We're going to figure out why you're shifting early, he promised, holding me tighter. Then the thing we were waiting for happened. My spine snapped. He reluctantly let go of me as the pain overtook my body and my limbs were convulsing. I suddenly felt my whole body change shape as the bones moved even further and my legs and arms shifted into awkward positions. Everything around me turned brighter and my senses turned on full blast. If I thought my senses before were amazing, it was nothing compared to right now. Then I felt my pores fill with weird stuff, and fur sprouted all over my body, and a tail grew from my behind. I grew larger and larger, and my face lengthened into a dog-like shape. Then the pain stopped. There were shreds of clothes around me, and Blake was staring at me in wonder. Shaking my head, I felt a presence enter the back of my mind like a sub, conscious, and oddly enough, it felt like it belonged there. I'm your wolf, silly. Haven't you been paying attention to your classes in the pack meetings? A deep but feminine voice boomed from inside my head. Growling, I shook my head, instantly wanting to get rid of it. Ha! You can't get rid of me. It's you and me for life. You die, I die, the voice said again. Shit, I don't want a stupid bitchy conscience in my head for life. There has to be a way. Shut up, will you? I'm your wolf, whether you like it or not. Now start paying more attention to our mate over there. The expressions on your face is creeping him out. Whipping my head around, I saw Blake giving me weird looks, and I smiled at him sheepishly, before trotting over to him. Fun, isn't it? He smirked, clearly enjoying my confusion for his own benefit. I scowled at him and pawed my head. There has to be a way to get rid of that voice. There's no way I want a subconscious, especially if we will fight all the time. Shift back, Blake demanded, bringing me out of my thoughts. Growling at him, I went up to him and tugged at his shirt. There's no way I'm shifting back in front of him. If there's one thing I learned, it was when shifters shift their clothes, get ripped in the process. So when I shift back, I'll be naked. He furrowed his eyebrows, but then realization suddenly appeared in his eyes. He pouted at me before stripping of his shirt. Trying not to look at his six-pack, I grabbed the shirt with my mouth and went behind a tree. When I was behind a wide tree, I shut my eyes tightly and imagined my human form. I felt a hot, tingling sensation run under my skin before I heard my bones pop and reshape. It hurt, but it was nowhere near as painful as the first shift. Opening my eyes, I realized I had face planted on the dirt ground. My limbs spread all around me, standing up on shaky legs. I picked up his shirt, putting it on. It went an inch or two above mid-thigh, and if I stretched it would show parts I would rather it not. Grumbling, I banged my eyes against the tree covering me. Fuck, fuck, fuck. I cursed under my breath. I didn't want to go out there like this. I also wasn't wearing a bra either. Thank God his shit was black. I would be pissed if it was white. But it didn't help, it was a V-neck. You could see my cleavage and a lot of it. Sighing, frustrated I couldn't pull it down because then you would see my boobs, and I couldn't pull it up because then you could see down there. Damn you, Blake, for choosing this top. Taking a deep breath, I walked out from behind the tree, only to bump into Blake, who was directly in front of it. Glaring at him accusingly, I crossed my arms under my chest. I was, that, he stuttered, looking like a little kid who got caught stealing from a cookie jar. Running a hand through his messy hair, he looked down to see what I was wearing, only to choke on his breath. It was either this or nothing, I muttered, cursing under my breath for shifting. He didn't say anything, he just kept looking at my body. Trailing back up, his eyes stopped at my chest, which was pushed up because I crossed my arms under it. Clumsily unfolding my arms, I let them hang by my sides. Holy shit, he breathed. His irises turned from a steel gray to glassy black in 2 seconds. Taking a step towards me, I took one back, only to hit a tree. Frantically, I searched for an escape route. He kept coming towards me, lust clear in his eyes. A devilish smile came across his face as he looked me up and down again, gulping. I pressed myself further into the tree. Please don't kiss me. Please don't kiss me. Leaning over me by a couple of inches, he pressed his mouth beside my ear. You look really good in my clothes, he said huskily. I winced inside. My heartbeat was going 1,000,000 miles an hour. Where had all my self-control gone? 'Cause you starting to like him, my wolf teased. I narrowed my eyes at her. Shut up. I felt like slapping her. Out of all the wolves, I get her. Is there a mute button to them? She scoffed, offended. Blake started pressing kisses to my neck, and for some reason I felt the need to moan out loud. Then he moved the right of my neck, and I felt his teeth lengthen and press into my skin slightly where my shoulder and neck meet. Shit! 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 He can't mark me now. Blake, stop! I hissed. He only growled and continued to press more into my neck. Blake! I tried again, but he ignored me. I can't get marked yet. Thinking quickly, I saw an opening and lifted my leg up, not caring that he could see under the shirt, and hit him in the family jewels. I gasped and realized I had hit the most powerful alpha in America. Oh well, he's my mate, I'll survive. He groaned and clutched the front of his jeans. He was still bare, chested, and I couldn't help but stare until I realized he could get up at any moment. Making a quick decision, I decided to head back the way I came. He shouldn't have tried to mark me without my consent. Even if most females get their mate to mark them straight away, I wasn't ready. Then I heard Blake get up. Thanks to my even more heightened senses, I could hear him groan a bit. Picking up my pace, I was determined not to let him catch up to me. "That was not nice!" I heard Blake call out, then his pace quickened until I heard him start sprinting. I contemplated shifting into my wolf, but then realized he could easily shift as well and catch up to me. Groaning, I stuffed my face into the palms of my hands and continued walking. "Why did you do that?" I heard Blake demand from behind me. I ignored him. Maybe he'll give up when he realizes I'm not responding. "Answer me!" Blake commanded using his alpha title. For some reason, I never responded to any of the alpha or beta commands, so I always had fights with the beta of my pack because our alpha was always out, and Jake, the beta, knew I wasn't affected by his beta voice. It royally pissed him off, leaving us to have fights. The worst part was the even alpha and beta mates had to respond to it so they could control their mates. "Did you just use your alpha voice on me?" I asked calmly, already knowing the answer. His eyes bugged. What? Did he think I was going to submit because he used his alpha title? He can go get fucked. Blake's POV. What the hell was going on? First she shifts without being marked, kicks me in the balls when I'm going to mark her, and then doesn't respond to an alpha command. What next? Flying. I seriously felt like tearing my hair out. What fuck was with this girl? But she had an amazing wolf. She was the same color as me, except her black coat had a bluey hue to it. It pretty awesome. Her eyes also turned to an electric yellow, while mine turned black, and she was huge for a female. She was almost the size of me. Probably a couple inches shorter and slimmer. Except my wolf was still pissed about her not letting us mark her. How dare she? What if another male comes and marks her, then what? He raged, growling at the thought of her with another male's mark. Rolling my eyes, I knew no male would dare touch her because of me, but I still couldn't help but get possessive at the thought of her with another male. Okay, I felt like locking her up in my room so no male sees her, so what? She was gorgeous. I almost lost control of my wolf when she stepped out from behind the tree. The shirt barely covered anything. What happens when we enter the pack house? She'll only be wearing that shirt, my wolf snapped. Sudden realization took over me. I'll just hide her behind me, or sneak her through a window. She won't mind. I'm pretty sure she didn't even want me to see her like that. Coming back to reality, I realized she had run off without me again. At least this time she didn't kick you in the balls, my wolf smirked. Hearty, ha. Sniffing the air, she wasn't that far away, but I could tell she was running. Time to get her back, again. Lyra's POV. Fine, I agreed, huffing in annoyance, and taking a deep breath before placing my hand on the windowsill. I was about to hitch my leg up till I heard Blake growl. Looking back at him confused, I saw his eyes were trained on my behind. Gasping, I hurriedly pulled my shirt down. I knew this was a bad idea. After he caught up with me, he told me that we would have to sneak into the pack house to get some clothes, otherwise everyone else would see me dressed like this. Growling back at him, I crossed my arms over my chest. I was glad that I was able to growl back at him. It made me feel cool for some weird reason, maybe because I hated submitting to people, and it gave me a sense of power. Come on, I won't look, he pleaded, but it sounded more like a question. I was seriously doubting that he wouldn't look. It seemed physically impossible for him. Smirking, I shook my head. Why don't you go inside and get me some clothes? I asked, amused. If he thought I was that stupid, he had another thing coming. Because another pack member could see you and get the wrong impression, he stuttered, looking like he was racking his brain for an answer. I could tell he made that one up on the spot. After all, I studied psychology. What he doesn't realize is that his eyes dart up to the left when he's making something up. But he did have a good point. I seriously didn't want anyone thinking that I had sex with him. No way. I didn't doubt that they would think differently. I mean, look. I'm in his shirt with nothing else on. That would make anyone question what they had been doing. Okay. But I need something for my bottoms. Don't even bother mentioning that you won't look. I already caught you once. That's enough evidence, I said. He suddenly started stripping of his jeans and was about to pull his navy blue boxers down. Whoa, 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 I cried, covering my eyes. Did I ask for a strip here? I asked behind covered eyes. He chuckled, and I heard another piece of clothing drop. No, you didn't, but I could give you one if you want. He smirked. I scowled and aimed a kick in his direction. He grunted, before I heard him curse, and jump for a while. Did I hit on target? I asked innocently. The sadist on side of me started laughing hysterically. No, but you were close. You hit my thigh, he groaned. What is your foot made of, steel? Nope, but I still want an answer. Why did you suddenly decide to strip? I demanded. If I didn't cover my eyes, I would have seen something I wish I hadn't. For your information, I am not naked anymore, but since you'll be climbing that wall, you'll need my boxers, he said calmly, but I could hear the mockery inside his voice. He knows I don't want to wear his boxes, but I have no other choice. Grumbling, I uncovered my eyes, and to my surprise he had his jeans on, but his boxers in hand. Don't you have anything else? I don't want to wear anything of yours that has touched your thing. I scowled and grimaced a bit. His smile only increased, and he shook his head and chucked the boxers on top of my head. It's either that or nothing. Turn around, then. I sighed in exasperation. He grumbled under his breath before turning around. Lifting my leg up, I looked up into the window to see his eyes in the reflection trained on my body. He then quickly averted his eyes, but it was too late. I knew he would do something like that. Turning the boxers inside out, I slipped them on. Then I rolled up the waistband so it would slip down and stomped over to him. I gripped his hair and pulled it down so his eyes were level with mine. If you're asking for another kick in the balls, I suggest you do that again. I saw you looking at me through the reflection in the window. Nice try, buddy, but your perverted ways are really starting to annoy me. I hope you don't do that to many other girls. You could get arrested for inappropriate staring. I snarled and released his hair. He huffed and rubbed the part of his head where I grabbed his hair. I can't help it that you have a hot body. It should really be you at fault, he said innocently, a smirk playing at the corner of his mouth. I hit him over the top of his head before scaling the wall. I was about to grab for a second-story window when I felt a tug at the boxers I was wearing. Looking down, I saw Blake standing on the top of the first-story windowsill. God, woman, you're violent, he cried, and climbed to the next story, standing level with me. I climbed up another story, and he followed. We were now on the third-story window outside his office, smiling cheekily at me. He opened the window and gestured for me to go in. Rolling my eyes, I stepped in, and the overwhelming scent of Blake took over my senses. I had to pause for a few seconds. Straightening up, I looked behind me to see Blake staring at the back of my head. He seemed in a trance till I moved a bit. Then he blinked rapidly before shaking his head. You okay? I've never seen any of the girls from our pack try to scale the walls of this place, he said. I raised my eyebrows. None of the girls even tried to climb the walls? It didn't even take me more than 10 minutes. Yeah, I'm just not afraid of heights, that's all. I shrugged and sank back into a black leather sofa that was next to me. Propping his feet up on his glass coffee table, he sat back next to me, and we sat in silence for a while. So, am I going to be stuck in these clothes all day, or can I change? I questioned, breaking him out of his daydreaming. Sure. Of course. Blake's POV. I couldn't help but stare at her. I probably looked like an obsessed freak. But every time I looked at her, I just couldn't look away. She had just changed into another set of clothes I had bought for her. She doesn't know it yet, but I bought her a whole new wardrobe. Sure, she had her old clothes, but I wanted to get her something. She had a small but extremely toned figure and was about 5'5" fit 11 is. She was one of the tallest girls I had met. She was virtually bordering 6 foot, while I was a giant 6'6". Right now she was sleeping on my bed. I really wanted to join her, but she gave me strict instructions. If you even touch the bed, I'll kill you, so don't even think about sleeping next to me. Just go to the couch. She threatened. She was very violent, but I loved it. She could take care of herself, and that's what I liked about her. She didn't need a male to provide for her. She was so different to all the other girls. It upset my wolf a bit, but at the same time it made him proud. Then she started tossing and turning. Her mumbling turned into whimpers, and she kept shaking her head and bucking her hips. Her mumbling got louder, but I still couldn't make out what she was saying. Then she started kicking and pushing her arms into the air. It looked like she was trying to defend herself, but why? Shh! Lee, it's okay. It's just me, I whispered soothingly, pulling her to my chest. The thrashing got worse, and she was trying to get out of my grip. I wrapped my arms around her elbows and put my legs over her kicking ones, holding them down. She was still struggling, but she couldn't move as much now. No, 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 please don't. No, I'm still a ver, she mumbled. She continued bucking her hips, feeling concerned for her. I flipped her over so her head was on my chest, and then flipped myself over so I was hunched over her. I pressed some of my weight on her legs to keep them down and held her arms down with my hands. Please stop. I'll do anything. Just let me go home, she whimpered and pressed herself further into the bed. Her kicking stopped, but the occasional struggle kept going. Lee, you need to wake up. You're having a nightmare, I whispered, shaking her shoulders gently, but all I got from that was her flinching, and a stream of tears started to run down her face. Come on, Lee, wake up, I urged. This had to stop. More and more tears were coming down her face, and she was visibly shaking. Pressing my hips to hers, I tried to stop her from bucking. No, don't please, just stop it, she screamed, and started struggling wildly, her head shaking from side to side, her features scrunched up in pain and disgust. I quickly lifted my hips from hers, and she stopped shaking, but her struggles got even worse. Tears were staining her white crop top. My wolf was whimpering and was pleading with me to make her stop. This was hurting him as well as me. Making a rash decision, I jumped up off her and sprinted to the corner of my temporary room. Thank God this room was soundproof, otherwise people would be asking questions. After a minute or so, her struggling stopped and her mumbling quietened. She scrunched her eyes up and stretched across the bed. Thus she jumped up and looked around the room frantically, and her eyes zeroed on me. A look of fear and nervousness flashed before she covered it up. I'm just going to have a shower. You know, she stuttered and sprinted into the shower. Her words replayed over and over in my head. No, 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 please don't. No, I'm still a veer. I shuddered. It sounded so desperate and in pain, as if she had actually experienced it. I wish she finished her sentence. What does veer mean? I'm still a ver... What the hell? This makes no sense. The shower hadn't turned on yet, and I was getting worried. She had been in there for 10 minutes, and I couldn't hear anything. Silently walking up to the door, I pressed my ear against it. She was crying again. I didn't get it. 1 minute she was all tough and shit, and then she breaks down because of a dream. Maybe it's a memory, dumbass, my wolf snapped. I froze. There were so many situations that popped up into my head at once. She looked so torn apart and distraught. I couldn't imagine anything so bad happening to her to make her break down like that. Knocking on the door, I wanted to see how she was. Are you okay? I asked hesitantly. She stopped sobbing, and I heard her rush around a bit. Yeah, I'm fine. The shower turned on, and I heard her clothes drop to the floor. Deciding to give her a moment, I walked out of the room and down the stairs. When I reached the bottom, I bumped into a pack member. Oh, Alex, sorry, how are you? I asked. This guy joined my pack a year ago. His family was murdered, so he took refuge here. He smiled at me kindly. Fine, thanks, Alpha. How about you? He questioned, a concerned expression on his face. Looking deeper into his eyes, I noticed a nervous glint in his eyes, but it vanished as soon as it came. I'm well. My mate's resting in my room. Word probably got around about what happened by now, huh? He nodded to my question. I grimaced. I wouldn't be surprised if the rest of the pack found out by now. Damn gossip. Well, see ya. Gonna get some food for her. I waved goodbye to him as I walked to the kitchen. When I entered the kitchen, out head chef Flo was cooking up a storm. Hey, Flo, do you have some food for my mate? I asked. She hadn't eaten since lunch, and now it was heading towards midnight. I sure do. Was just waiting till you came down to be getting it. Which she replied in her country accent. Flo was a nice woman. She was about 40 years old and had a bit of fat on her, but she was a fantastic cook. Thanks, Flo. Your psychic skills are getting much better. I winked and picked up the plate she handed to me. Laughing, she shooed me away. Walking back up the stairs, I opened the door to find Lyra just walk out of the bathroom. Her skin seemed to be raw, and her eyes were slightly bloodshot. She didn't seem to notice me as she walked to my bed and plopped down under the covers. Clearing my throat, I walked over to her and handed her the plate. She looked down sadly at the plate and back up at me. "Sorry, but I can't eat till tomorrow afternoon. It's a side effect of the nightmares. Anything I consume will be thrown up in an hour." Furrowing my eyebrows, I raked my eyes over her form. Her raw skin had turned back to the way it was, and her bloodshot eyes were already a shade lighter. "What's wrong, Lee? I only want to help. You were screaming and crying in your sleep," I said quietly. She shook her head, a sad smile on her lips. "There's nothing you can do. Something about this place triggered it, or a scent," she added under her breath at the end. "I'll find out sooner or later, Lee. Why not get it over and won with?" I asked, getting slightly annoyed. She was stuck with me for life. She shouldn't have any problem telling me what's wrong. It's more complicated than that. Anyway, I would rather you found out later than sooner, she sighed and bid me good night, before sliding under the covers. Closing my eyes briefly, I waited till her breathing evened out and slid in next to her. She stiffened, but didn't make any drastic movements. "I will find out what happened to you, Lyra, with or without your help.